It's my pleasure to welcome you to this EV Track Task Force initiative, a first kickoff meeting by which we aim to establish a task force to further manage and develop the EV Track knowledge base. So our program of today will consist of a general introduction to EV Track, where we explain why we developed the EV Track knowledge base, how we developed the EV Track knowledge base, what have been the changes, updates that we have made so far, and of course discuss with you on the future, making use of different breakout rooms. And in the end, we will wrap up the outcome of the different breakout rooms, but also give some more information on how we envision the recruitment of members to the task force and what the different contributions would be that we expect. So we have a very exciting program for today. And first of all, we want to kick off with Professor Juan Falcon Perez, who will give us a short introduction overall to the ISEV rigor and standardization task forces. So please, Juan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I think you can already see it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Anne, for take this initiative. Okay. And I will introduce the rigor and standardization. As you can see by the first slide, the committee is formed by myself, by Ring Newland, and Ken Whitner, and also Clotilde Torri, and also for Med Kaldenacid, who is the executive chair of the science committee. Yes. So as you can see, this is we have a web page that most of the information is there, and is this one that I am showing here. And this is how it looks. It's changing, but we are updating. But this is how it looks today. Okay. I have to say that the rigor and standardization idea inside the ISEV is not new. Started even from the beginning with the journal extracellular vesicle, also with the ISEV. So this idea of trying to get reproducibility and rigor. And formally, the rigor and standardization subcommittee was formed in 2019. And since then, with the ring and the committee, we have moved ahead, and I think we are in a very good shape these days with this committee. So why this subcommittee? As you know, from many sides of the science, there are what is called the reproducibility crisis, in which many people is doing testing. I don't know how many in one area of the science. Let's take these 100 articles and let's try to reproduce. And surprisingly, not many of them are reproduced. So, and this is what the reproducibility crisis in many areas of science is taking a lot of awareness. And if you see, for example, in a Nature publication, they ask to the science, to scientists, how they feel with the reproducibility thing. And more than 50% of the science were telling that it's a very problematic issue these days. So, okay, this is the situation. The reproducibility is critical in science. And it's normal, it's nothing new. So then specifically the ISEV focus was try to get reproducibility on the research and applicability of the extracellular vesicles. That is the work in which we are working on. Okay, trying to provide more robustness, reliability, credibility, and sustainability. At the end, the robustness, reliability, and credibility what create what is the sustainability for the field, and this is what we need. Okay. As you need, I mean, extracellular vesicles are very has a lot of applications, and biomedical application that is critical is also a good area. I mean, the area where we have the applicability in two main areas: diagnosis and therapeutic. Okay, but what I wanted to focus here is, in order to do this real, we need to convince many people that really we can do it. I mean, as EV community, we can create this science based on EV, reproducible and robust, that at the end, what the intent is to provide to the society these kind of products, okay? And this is the idea. Of course, the challenge are, as always, many, and in particular in the area of extracellular vesicles, we have different parts: quality control, how we control the pre-analytical parameter. I don't know how we collect the samples. All this is the starting point in which, before to go to the preparation of the vesicles. For this, for how to control the pre-analytical, SPREC could be one of the possibilities. Then you have the normalization, the scalability, the how this can be accepted by regulatory agencies, or how the funding agencies and investors can be also affecting the EV as a field to go and invest. Okay, all this area is very depend on the reproducibility. So how we get the reproducibility. For that, the task, what we have done in the committee is organize like a task force. Okay, the task force is a way to create different activities inside the rigor and standardization subcommittee, each of them with a specific aim or goals, and very broad. I mean, it's not fixed in one situation. It's depending on the topic, depending on the interest. So we'll have different modalities. Normally, is done through a SurveyMonkey. Okay, that is accessible from the web page. And what we ask is different. Is a chair, the topic, a little how they want to develop the task force, and it's not difficult, so it's simple, and the only thing is need to be active and to be a people of experts around one topic, okay, that need to be resolved or need to be the attention in the EV community. Also, what ISEV provide to the task force, I mean, these type of things, the agreement, the get together, some visibility, the web page, or workshop organization, seminars, so different possibility that the ISEV could provide in order to develop the task force. We already have several task force: blood, urine, cerebrospinal fluid, mostly in body fluids, okay, because it's the one that has most developed, but it's not only body fluids. For example, we have one devoted to try to push the regulatory and the clinical use of EV-based therapeutics, okay. Then solid tissues, and the one that we are now starting, that is EV track, and we will see more in the next presentations. Some example, for example, urine task force is one of the most active at the moment, and they have different activities, developing papers, guidelines, and, for example, organizing workshops, in virtual workshops, in order to discuss topics about urinary extracellular vesicles. Okay, and here you have the several members. This is one of the. Similar with the blood task force, that Rink is the coordinator and the chair, but here, for example, they have organizing in this is the task force that is organized in working groups. So, and each working groups in the task force has different, let's say, focus or developed to advance in the different topics that at the end is related with the blood task force. And even they organize also the own workshop that was last September. Then the regulatory affair, for example, the clinical use of EV therapeutics is also another very active task force, in which here, for example, we have representations of different agencies or different the interaction with other society, different organisms. This is also good for the task force in order to enrich the environment and the discussion and try to get together what is important, okay, to develop this. And for example, the regulatory affair has already produced several papers and indication and awareness. So that is the idea with the task force in this case, okay. Yes, just I don't want to take too much time because I think for the presentation of the regular standardization is enough. Just I will finish with this slide that is the web page in which you can find the different information about the task forces and also how to go into one new task force. And there will be a new ISEV activity that is called Scientific Interest Group that is also related in to foster the interaction inside ISEV with different members and also promoting different areas of the EV. Just to finish, this is the in ISEV in the meeting on May in Seattle will be different moments or different part in the program that is related with the task force, and this is very good because give the visibility and also give the idea that the task forces are already moving, are already producing things that to show to the membership in the ISEV, and that is very valuable. Okay, and with this short presentation, I think is enough to proceed ahead with the workshop about EV track. Okay, thank you. And any question, I will be.
Thank you, Juan, for this very nice overview on the different aspects of the Rigor and Standardization Subcommittee. I also immediately want to take this opportunity to thank ISEV and the Rigor and Standardization Subcommittee to give us the opportunity to establish an EV track task force. So thank you for that. And then, of course, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the EV track task force. So let me first share my screen. Okay, this should be okay now. Okay, so first of all, we were very delighted with the number of registrations that we received for this event today. So we were able to have to at least stimulate over 400 participants to register for the meeting, which is of course very nice to see how the EV track platform is still living amongst the EV research community. So the efforts that have been made so far on the EV track knowledge base to date are mainly managed by the EV track administrators. So it's also my pleasure to introduce them to you. So we have 3 postdocs that are actually currently still actively working on the EV track knowledge base, which is Jan van Deuren, Sarah de Ville and Kanteru. And then we also have the informatician who is managing all the informatics behind the knowledge base, and that is Sander de Dene. So together with these EV track administrators, we prepared the task force meeting of today, and we also try to make directions and potential working groups within the EV track task force. Now, first of all, a general introduction. What is EV track? So EV track is actually a freely available online knowledge base that we established in 2017 that has the aim to stimulate transparent reporting, but also to centralize knowledge in extracellular vesicle research. And to achieve this, we actually established this knowledge base with 7 enabling features. And I will go over all of these features in the upcoming presentation. But of course, first of all, I want to inform you on why we developed or decided to develop the EV track knowledge base. The first important aspect is, of course, that EV research is encountering heterogeneity at multiple levels. Extracellular vesicles are heterogeneous. They differ in their origin, biogenesis, and traits, but also the biofluids or the fluids in general, where we can observe and identify those extracellular vesicles, contain a diverse set of particles. So indeed, if we have a look to different types of biofluids that are commonly explored for extracellular vesicle research, such as urine, cell or tissue cultures, fecal samples, and blood plasma samples, we know by now that all these biofluids contain biofluid-specific particles and universe particles. So for example, for the biofluid-specific particles, we have the Tam-Horsfall protein complexes in urine and the lipoprotein particles in blood samples. But of course, in general, we identify particles such as protein aggregates and also cell-free or cell-free circulating nucleic acids. And within this complexity, we have different subpopulations of extracellular vesicles. A second level of heterogeneity occurs at the level of the protocols and the methods that we implement. So first of all, there are multiple protocols that we use to collect, handle, and store the biofluids, and then also multiple methods that we use to prepare extracellular vesicles from the biofluids or to characterize the extracellular vesicles. Now, does this matter? So we know multiple methods are available to prepare extracellular vesicles. So for example, differential ultracentrifugation, size exclusion chromatography, and ultrafiltration can separate extracellular vesicles based upon size from other particles that are present in the biofluids. Density gradient centrifugation exploits their density. Then immune capture extracts the vesicles based upon the surface antigens, and then also precipitation solutions are commonly used to extract biological materials from those fluids. I want to show you this key example, which was one of the first studies that actually highlighted the potential impact of the choice of your preparation method on downstream analysis. So here we started from a very simple biofluid, cell culture supernatant, and we prepared extracellular vesicles by differential ultracentrifugation, density gradient centrifugation, or the exoquick precipitation protocol, and we analyzed those samples for their RNA content. And what we could observe is that the RNA profile of the vesicles obtained with the density gradient differed from the extracellular vesicle preparations obtained with differential ultracentrifugation and exoquick. Of course, one potential explanation would be that those different methods enrich extracellular vesicles with different levels of specificity. Indeed, if we did an analysis for the extracellular vesicle-associated protein TSG101 versus the Argonaut-2 protein to unravel the presence of ribonucleoprotein complexes that also are known to carry and stabilize RNA, we observed that with the density-based method, mainly extracellular vesicles were enriched, whereas with the other two methods, we had a co-separation of both the extracellular vesicles, but also those ribonucleoprotein complexes. If we then look to the different fractions from the density gradient from the top to the bottom, we observed that the extracellular vesicles floated to their characteristic density of 1.1 gram per milliliter, while those ribonucleoprotein complexes were retained in the top fractions of the density gradient. So this example actually illustrates that depending on the method that we use, that we can indeed identify different compositions and different functions. And this was one of the first studies demonstrating that between 2014 and now, multiple reports for multiple biofluids and also for different types of cargos or functions have demonstrated and confirmed these results. So we know that there is multiple level heterogeneity, and this heterogeneity can of course impact the results that we obtain. So overall there is a need towards transparency and reproducibility. And within the EV research community, multiple efforts have been made over the past couple of years with the aim to increase or at least develop tools that allow to increase this transparency and reproducibility. So of course, very well known are the ISEV guidelines, first in 2014 with an update in 2018 and probably an update coming this year. Then we had the establishment of the Rigor and Standardization Subcommittee with multiple task forces that also deliver position papers with the aim to increase transparency and reproducibility. And in 2017, we contributed the establishment of the EV-Track knowledge base. So how did we develop this EV-Track knowledge base? Well, based upon the observation of the study where we observed that different methods result in different extracellular vesicle preparations that differ in their RNA content, we decided to really map the heterogeneity in the methods that are being used in the field. So we decided to perform a systematic literature analysis where we analyzed all EV-related publications that were published between 2010 and 2015. Of course, this is a lot of work, so to achieve this, we established the EV-Track Consortium, which at that time consisted of 95 participants covering 39 institutions worldwide. So basically in the systematic analysis, we analyzed 1,200 publications for 115 experimental parameters. And those parameters relate, indicated in green, to the separation of extracellular vesicles from different biofluids that are highlighted here in the different colors, and also the characterization at the protein level and at the particle level. Now, when we first analyzed all the results that we gathered, we actually observed that for those 1,200 publications, more than 1,000 unique protocols were reported to separate vesicles from these biofluids. Secondly, we also observed that there is some inconsistent reporting, meaning that although studies report on extracellular vesicles, they do not always show the presence of characterization. So this was actually lacking in almost 20% of the manuscripts. So based upon this, we started to discuss within the EV-Track Consortium, and then also following the recommendations of the ISEV 2014 guidelines, to extract a set of parameters that we thought would be very important to know, to be able to interpret experiments that are described in literature. And we came up with a set of 9 parameters, which included the analysis of EV-enriched proteins, non-EV associated proteins, characterization at the particle level, both by electron microscopy or quantification methods, and the implementation of a control method to confirm the results. Furthermore, we also followed up on the reporting of particular parameters which related to the ultracentrifugation specifics, the use of the antibodies and their concentrations, and also the lysis buffer composition. So these 9 parameters were then referred to as the EV metric, which to us was a measure for the level of transparent reporting in extracellular vesicle research. So we then analyzed all those 1,200 manuscripts for their EV metric. So what is the percentage of parameters that is being completed in these studies? And we actually observed, for example, on studies that were analyzing extracellular vesicles in serum, almost 50% of those publications obtained an EV metric of 0, indicating that they did not report on any of those 9 parameters. And if we have an overall look to all these 9 parameters over all the studies and all the biofluids, we could actually observe that the reporting for all was less than 50% for all manuscripts. And of course, we could also observe that, for example, reporting on non-EV associated proteins, electron microscopy, but also specifics on ultracentrifugation, the use of antibodies and lysates was really not that high in the field. So then we started to think, okay, now we did this systematic analysis. We have a metric in which we can sort of measure the level of transparent reporting in those manuscripts. How can we now develop a tool that allows us to stimulate the users in transparent reporting? So we decided to implement all the knowledge that we gathered from literature to establish the EV-Track knowledge base with those 7 enabling features. So in the following of the presentation, we will go over those 7 enabling features. The first set of features, highlighting the upload, the EV metric, and the coaching features, are actually features that really aim to stimulate researchers in transparent reporting. Now, how do we try to achieve this? First of all, we stimulate researchers to actually upload the experimental parameters of their manuscripts to the EV-Track knowledge base prior to sending out their manuscript to a journal for publication. So once researchers upload their manuscript to EV-Track, they will receive an EV-Track ID and a preliminary evaluation with the EV metric. This EV metric they can use to further increase the level of transparency. For example, if they do not report on particular parameters, the authors have the opportunity to report them in their experimental material and method section and increase the EV metric and thus the level of transparency. Now, of course, since those pre-publications are not yet published, these will enter in a closed database and are only accessible to the authors who have access to the EV-Track ID, and the authors can also choose to share the EV-Track ID with journal editors and reviewers that can then also access the data that were submitted to the EV-Track knowledge base. Now, upon publications, the authors have the possibility to further fine-tune the submission that they made, and the EV-Track admin team will check the data and allocate the final EV metric, and then this manuscript will become publicly available also through the EV-Track knowledge base. Now, this is a whole workflow, so let's have a look how it works. I shortly want to highlight that although we stimulate to submit pre-publication, why? Because then you still have the opportunity to upgrade your level of transparency and reporting. Also, for published experiments, EV-Track can be used to upload and have them entered in the EV-Track knowledge base. So how does the workflow work? So first of all, here is the link to the EV-Track knowledge base. Once you enter this link, this will be the opening page or the home page. And there are different tabs that you can see. So first of all, if you want to upload data, you have to create a login using the My EV-Track tab. And once you created an upload, you will get access to different buttons. So the top button indicates upload new data. So if you push this button, you are able to upload the experimental parameters of a pre-publication manuscript or a post-publication manuscript. So if you push this button, you will get access to the survey. And this survey consists of a set of questions related to different experimental parameters that are related to your particular study. So, for example, the first question is whether this is a pre-publication submission. If you indicate yes, then it goes to the closed database. If you indicate no, then you will also be asked to enter the PubMed ID, and it will immediately become available on the EV-Track knowledge base once it has been validated by the EV-Track admin. So you can complete the whole survey. And once you have completed the survey, you will receive an EV metric. And how does this EV metric look like? So the EV metric from the 2017 version or the first version looks like this. So it consists of the 9 experimental parameters, and they are indicated in green if they are properly reported in the experimental parameters, and they are indicated in red if they are not yet reported. Meaning, if this is a pre-publication setting, the authors have the possibility, in this particular case, to still report the specifics on ultracentrifugation, antibodies, and lysate preparations that they need. And this is actually the case for most of the studies. So in 80% of the experiments, an increase in the EV metric is obtained by increasing reporting rather than performing experiments. So it's really a matter of reporting that we aim to increase. So these are the different features that relate to the transparent reporting. And of course, based upon the EV track, we see this as a sort of a coaching tool because the researchers become familiar with the parameters that are important and should be transparently reported to increase reproducibility. Besides transparent reporting, we also have some features that relate to the centralizing knowledge in EV research. If we go to the website and go to the search function, you can observe that there are many queries possible that ask, for example, you can request for studies that started from a particular biofluid with a certain study aim, using a particular separation method, and so on. So you can really develop queries that are not possible to achieve with any other search tool, or easy to achieve with any other search tools such as Google, Web of Science, or PubMed, and so on. The reason why we are able to query this information is, of course, that post-publication, we all have this information that was originally submitted to EV-Track available, including information on the size of particles that was observed in a particular biofluid using a particular characterization method, but also different types of methods for separation, characterization that were used. So it can really become a very valuable knowledge base, which allows us to follow up new insights in EV biology and also methods that are being used. So this knowledge base is available, was established in 2017, and now I try to convince you why you should use EV-Track. First of all, in terms of transparent reporting, it's a very helpful tool to educate and train different types of researchers, going from the master level, the postdoc level, and I think also to the principal investigator level. So to give an example, every master student that enters our lab, they all have to write a literature introduction for their master thesis. So all the manuscripts that they are using to write up this literature, they have to analyze making use of EV-Track. Why? Because they learn how to critically interpret literature. We also observed that those authors that submit their publications pre-publication to the EV-Track knowledge base have an increased EV metric because they are able to increase their transparency in reporting prior to publication. And of course, increase in transparency also results in an increase in reproducibility. It also contributes to an increased visibility of the manuscript because it becomes available on the EV-Track knowledge base. It's also announced under the most recent submission tab. And of course, we also spread the word through the social media, such as Twitter. It is one of the ISEV recommendations also to report your experimental parameters to the EV-Track knowledge base. And by doing this, you also make a very important contribution to maintain the knowledge base alive, because the knowledge base really depends on the input from the community. How can you use it to centralize knowledge? So it allows you to perform different queries, which can be very helpful when you're preparing also review manuscripts or, for example, the introduction to a research manuscript. So here are a couple of examples on how we implement it in our lab. So we have one study where we compare the performance of different blood collection tubes. Well, first of all, we explored, making use of the EV-Track knowledge base, what is the current use of the different types of tubes in the field. And another example, for example, where we made a review manuscript on urinary EV biomarker discovery, where we evaluated all these studies also for their EV metric or the transparency in reporting those 9 experimental parameters. It can also be very helpful if you make systematic reviews to overall explore, if you write a review on an extracellular vesicle related topic, what is the level of transparency in the manuscripts that you use to write the review? It's also an important tool, I believe, to the ISEV rigor and standardization task forces, because they commonly are interested to also screen literature for the reporting of particular parameters. And of course, overall, it allows us, the knowledge base allows us to monitor evolution in EV biology and methodology, which can further help guideline development and also steer the updates of guidelines. So since it launched in 2017, we made a lot of improvements to the EV track, which we refer to as the EV track second version. And we just want to show that it's indeed a living knowledge base. So a lot has been going on since its launch in 2017. And I first put it together in some numbers. So in 2017, the survey consisted of 115 parameters that were questioning the sample type, the EV preparation and EV characterization methods. The update that we plan to finalize this year, we actually request 300 parameters, of course, depending on the study aim, where we do not only focus on the sample type, but on different pre-analytics that are associated to the processing of those different types of samples, and of course further related to the EV preparation and characterization. How do we update and how did we decide to include these different parameters? Well, for example, this is through communication with the different ISEV task force or different frameworks that reported parameters that were thought in these particular occasions to be of high importance. So we had these discussions, for example, with the urine task force, where we added some pre-analytics on how to handle urine samples. And also we included additional questions related to the MyFlowSite EV framework. So it's really through these interactions that we start to accommodate the different parameters that we request based upon the needs in the field. The second improvement that we made is the number of publications that we have available in the knowledge base. So originally we had 1,200 publications. Now, to date, we have around 2,700 publications, but with its launch, we will be over 3,000 publications. If we take a look to the number of experiments, so one publication can report more than one extracellular vesicle related experiment. So we do see that there is a substantial increase in the number of experiments, besides an increase in the number of applications, which actually hints to the fact that studies are becoming more complex and that more different experiments are reported and performed in one publication. So, but in terms of knowledge base, I think it's very crucial to have this increase in number of publications. It allows us, for example, to monitor where the field is moving ahead in terms of transparent reporting related to the EV metric. And then we observe that over the years, there is a steady increase in the EV metric, the overall EV metric that is obtained, with, for example, in 2021, the majority of studies that are able to reach an EV metric of 50% or up. Here we can observe how the reporting on the different experimental parameters of the EV metric is evolving. So again, over the years, we can definitely observe that the reporting is significantly increasing. So for example, for the lysate preparation, antibody specifics and ultracentrifugation specifics, we almost reach 100% reporting. Also for EV enriched proteins, we do see an increase, but it's of course also requesting some experimental input besides only a describing input. So it lags a little bit behind, but there are also definitely improvements from that point of view. And then, of course, the number of participants. So originally we started with 39 institutions and 95 accounts. Now we have more than 900 institutions that have made use of the EV track knowledge base with over 1,400 accounts. If we take a look on the progress on the use of EV-Track over time, so it's really a worldwide contribution to EV-Track. And we also observe that there are approximately each year 200 new accounts that are registered to the knowledge base. A second effort, of course, beside all these numbers, is that we also try to integrate the use of the EV-Track knowledge base in other EV-related databases. As you can see in this figure, a schematic overview, multiple databases have been developed over the past couple of years. And these databases tend to capture the molecular cargo of extracellular vesicles that has been reported in different studies. Of course, it would be very interesting if these entries were directly linked to the EV-Track knowledge base, so that besides access to the molecular content, researchers also have access to the experimental parameters and the level of transparency in these studies. To achieve this and to further stimulate coaching by means of the EV-Track knowledge base, we developed this EV-Track summary add-on, which can be very easily integrated in those databases. And for now, this has been successfully achieved for the Vesiclipedia update from 2019, where all studies that are entered in Vesiclipedia are directly linked to the EV-Track knowledge base as well. Then there is, of course, also the question on the EV metric. So originally we decided on the 9 experimental parameters based upon the ISEV 2014 guidelines. But we also know that guidelines are evolving over time. So also the EV metric needs to evolve over time. So if we redesign the EV metric from 2017, we observe that it consists of components that relate to the interpretation of the experiments versus the reproducibility of the experiments. So related to interpretation, we have controls for the preparation of extracellular vesicles, and we also have characterization at the protein level and the particle level. But in terms of reproducibility, we only request parameters related to ultracentrifugation, Western blot that was performed, and yeah, basically parameters relating to the performance of protein assays. For the new update, we decided to first of all tackle the second part on the reproducibility, where we actually made the change that for every question that you should be able to answer based upon the methods that you indicate that you use, we check whether all the questions have been answered or not. And so, of course, not all questions are sometimes applicable, but in this particular case, related to the pre-analytical variables, the authors had to report on 5 questions. They fulfilled the reporting, so they get a score of 100%, or a point of 1 in the EV metric. The same applies to the separation protocol, the molecular characterization, and the particle characterization. So this is an update where we want to give more weight towards transparent reporting, also besides having some quality control experiments that are in line with the ISEV guidelines. So overall, during the past couple of years, we have updated the EV-Track knowledge base, and we maintained it alive by making multiple efforts to ease also the use of the knowledge base. So we made a full update of the submission platform to make sure that it goes faster, that it's more easy to use and less of a burden to those who are using the platform and aiming to transparently report. We updated the EV metric. We improved it as a coaching tool by reaching out to databases and creating add-ons so that databases can be linked to the EV-Track knowledge base. We increased the number of parameters that can be queried or addressed in the database, and we also increased the number of studies that are already available in the database. So overall, a lot of effort has been made to further enable transparent reporting and centralized knowledge. But actually the most important part is that both are supported by a community effort. So the community really plays a central role in maintaining and keeping the knowledge base alive, because we can of course develop multiple features that make it more easy to implement, but as a knowledge base it will become at its best when the community is actually making use of the knowledge base. And to further steer the community participants' participation in EV-Track, we therefore requested to establish an ISEV rigor and standardization task force where we can really involve the community and accommodate and make sure that the EV-Track knowledge base accommodates the needs of the community and the field at large. So with the EV-Track task force, which will in its composition have also a multi-level heterogeneity, just as the field, we aim first of all to update the EV-Track knowledge base with tools that enable and can further ease the use of the EV-Track knowledge base. So we want to do and further improve the use of the survey, but also the website. And it's of course the users from the community that can inform best on how we should improve and what should be improved. Also, in terms of handling pre-publication submissions, so the direct communication between the authors that are submitting to the EV-Track knowledge base and informing them about their EV-Track ID and going on discussion on how to improve and which experiments that can be done, together with the discussion with reviewers and editors that also sometimes reach out to us. This is also an important aspect. If we want to increase use, we also will receive more submissions and a need of more people that are able to help us with handling all these requests. Besides that, it's of course also important to make sure that the EV-Track knowledge base accommodates the current state of the art in the field. So it would be very important to directly interact and discuss with all the different rigor and standardization task forces, but also with the ISEV community at large and even beyond with other societies to further outreach and create visibility for EV-Track to ensure its use in the field towards transparent reporting, which will of course also benefit the centralization of knowledge. Now, all these aspects will be discussed in the different breakout rooms for today. So the first breakout room will handle the data submission and curation and will be moderated by Sarah and Jan. So with data submission and curation, we mean the whole workflow from where authors are submitting their experimental parameters to the EV-Track knowledge base, doing a quality check of the submission, a data curation, and then also uploading these manuscripts to the EV-Track knowledge base once they are published. But of course, here there is also communication between the authors and the administrators to further sometimes discuss on why particular parameters should be reported or how authors can further improve their transparent reporting, for example. In the second breakout room, we will discuss the maintenance and development of the website and the survey. So, of course, if we want to increase the use of the EV-Track knowledge base, we should develop tools that also allow us to ease the use of the knowledge base for the different researchers. And what is, of course, also coming into play is how, in the end, text mining and artificial intelligence at large can maybe help to overcome the gap that we have in the number of publications that are really rapidly evolving compared to the number of publications that we are able to submit to the EV-Track knowledge base. And in breakout room 3, we will discuss on how we can improve the outreach. So how can we improve the visibility of the EV-Track knowledge base? How can we establish a close interaction with the different ISEV task forces? And of course, also how should EV-Track at large evolve in the future in terms of a tool as for transparent reporting, as a tool to centralize knowledge, but also how to involve the community. So basically, we aim here to develop the directions to guide and deliver input to the other two working groups. Now, of course, for today, was very interesting to actually assess who was participating, or at least who registered for this meeting today. And we actually, in the survey, the registration survey, we added one question that was previously assessed in a survey by Ken Witwer that was published in the Journal of Extracellular Vesicles in 2021. And in this survey, they addressed whether participants were supporting the endorsement and used EV-Track in their group, whether they support the endorsement but never used EV-Track, whether they are familiar or not with EV-Track or do not support EV-Track. We had the same question in the survey for today. And what we could actually observe is that the results are more or less similar. So 1/3 of participants more or less supports and uses EV-Track. 1/3 of participants supports but did not use EV-Track. And then another 1/3 is actually not familiar with EV-Track or does not have an opinion. So I hope with the introduction of today that we were able to at least inform this 1/3 of participants on what EV-Track is and what you can use it for and why you should use it. And of course, it also demonstrates that there is still a significant amount of improvement that we can make in stimulating researchers to make use of the platform, whether it's for transparent reporting or to query and use search functions and centralize knowledge. If you look to the overall participation of the ISEV chapters, we observe that all chapters are represented with, of course, the Europe, Africa, and Americas at the benefit, because it's, I think, midnight in the Asia Pacific region. But what is also nice to observe is that we have like a 50-50 participation of junior versus senior career stages. And I think this is very important because, check my next slide, because within EV-Track and the EV-Track task force, we really want to join the junior researchers together with the senior researchers. And why do we have a particular interest also in junior or early career researchers? Because those are the people that are really implementing the EV-Track knowledge base, making use of the survey, submitting their data because they most of the time perform the experiments. So it would be very helpful to exploit this, to further build upon this experience gained by those people to update the EV-Track knowledge base and accommodate the needs on how to evolve. And of course, the senior participation is very relevant to build upon experts in different domain-specific topics, such as the different task forces, for example, that can really provide input on which parameters should we request if we want to handle urine samples or when we are developing therapeutics or developing biomarkers, so that we can really accommodate all the different needs in the field. So I think with that, I come to the end of the introduction section of today. So first of all, I want to thank, of course, the EV-Track administrators that have performed a lot of work in maintaining and updating the EV-Track knowledge base during the past couple of years. I also want to thank the EV-Track consortium members that initially helped us to establish the EV-Track knowledge base and that really contributed also to the success of this platform. I also want to thank all the over 1,400 users so far that have explored and used the EV-Track knowledge base to upload their publications or query the data. And of course, I also want to thank ISEV for the opportunity for us to establish this EV-Track task force meeting. So we discussed that we would not have a question and answer session after the introduction, but that we would really want to ask you to address all of your questions during the breakout rooms. And if there are any important questions that remain, please put them in the chat, and then we will address them in the wrap-up session. So in terms of the breakout rooms, we have 3 breakout rooms. So they are referred to as data submission and curation, and will be shared by Sarah and Jan. Then we have one on website and survey maintenance and developed, shared by Sander and Quentin. And then outreach and future developments, which will be shared by me. So in the wrap-up, we will come back with a short wrap-up of each of these 3 breakout rooms and address any further questions that you may have. And of course, we then will also come back on how we will foresee and manage the member recruitment to the EV-Track task force. So if I will stop sharing my screen for now. So if it's good, you should have a button at the bottom with a link to the breakout rooms where you can join one of the 3 breakout rooms, and there we will then continue with the discussion. So thank you for your attention and enjoy the discussions in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, indeed. We had a good session, I think. So we had many participants and many questions as well. So indeed, one of the issues was how to stimulate people to use it. And I think, yeah, just this whole discussion we have today with all these people will help already stimulating the use. And also by making it easier to submit. So yeah, one issue was that it was time consuming, or currently can be time consuming to submit different studies, especially if you have many different experiments. So this is yeah, where we will overlap with the other task force of the survey development. So just so we see that we identify problems or potential problems and solve them. But there was also some comments by people who have used the platform years ago, and then now, and they already felt that it improved a lot. So that we sort of removed the need for a lot of repetition. So I think, yeah, this was all quite positive. And then, yeah, time consuming, can be the submission, but also the curation. And so some people were worried that if they would join the task force, that it would take up too much time. But I think, yeah, especially if if you are with a lot of people, yeah, the more people, the less time it will take. So I think this was a point, and also that, yeah, we should have some sort of a schedule then to arrange this with all the participants of the task force, that we can say, okay, this, I have time on this day and or on those days in a month, and that we can sort of, yeah, share the load in this way. So I think this was already a good idea to do it in this way. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add anything, please do.
Yeah, there were also some suggestions to maybe improve the tools. So I think this will also bring us to the discussion and breakout room 2, so that maybe AI-based approaches could be of interest to further invest in. So this is definitely something which can also help for the data submission and curation part, to limit a bit the work of the EV-Track admin and to let the platform grow by the study content, to tackle the question, the remarks that sometimes the submission takes a bit long, and to find new ways to improve the system.
Yeah, and indeed, especially if you have like these checklists for specifically for plasma, or for these my flow site EV checklists, for example, that you can just relate to the checklists, and then we have a maybe like a text mining algorithm that can then extract the data that we find interesting for EV-Track from these checklists, and put them also in the in the entry on the website, and make them available in this way. I think was there another slide?
No, we had one slide for breakout.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, then yeah, I
Thank
think we
you,
covered.
Jan and Sarah, for sharing the breakout room. So I think many of the aspects partly overlap between the different breakout rooms, but maybe we come up with different suggestions. So let's look to breakout room 2, Quentin and Sander. And yeah, I have to advance the slides, correct?
Yeah, indeed. So what we overviewed in the breakout room 2 was, of course, the different how we discussed a bit how we could improve the usability of the survey and the website and ensure the consistency of data. So some people in the breakout room had the opportunity to download the full tables of their search to extract relevant data. And yeah, it has been pointed that there is, for example, if you take specific proteins, that sometimes indeed the way to write certain proteins is not consistent in among all experiments, and we've worked on these aspects in the survey. So you can you most of the time when you are asked to enter some specific protein you will have first a fixed list of the most used proteins for this given parameter in order to ensure that data are consistently made. And of course, because the survey keeps evolving, all the versions that may have names slightly differently written, it should be ultimately homogenized, and we hope that some tools, informatic tools, should be able to do that, like a fuzzy search Rodolphe mentioned. So we will be working on that from this discussion. Then the idea is also, of course, to keep the survey up to date, and that will involve, of course, an active communication with the work group for outreach and future developments, and also with the task forces. And to keep the survey up to date, we have now, as you were mentioning, on in IVTrack. Well, no, you were not mentioning that. That was in the breakout room. Sorry. We have now, because everything used to be hard-coded, each question used to be hard-coded, the type of question, the type of button, the type of answers. So it was actually very difficult to make changes or add new questions. And now everything is just gathered in one Excel table, where you can, any user basically could, or any admin could easily add a question and proposition and supproposition. So it will be very flexible in the future to modify the survey. Another major point that was discussed in the breakout room was the development of new tools. Yes, among these, it was suggested to create a PDF with a checklist or an extended study tree for EV experiments that could be extracted from the submission online to be placed also as an addendum in the publication. So to provide, for example, for reported study, a PDF where authors the authors can put as a supplementary figure, for example, to provide readers an overview of EV experiments performed in the study, the protocols that were used, and the structure of EV experiments generally. And this was written by Sander, and Sander, can you precise a little bit what you meant by
so Metka talked about when she searched DUC, for example, that she got a lot of different results, but you're more interested in the general flow of an experiment and not like specifics, that the difference between the different experiments would then be 10 minutes, an hour, 4 hours or something like that.
Yeah, indeed. So that's new tools to propose indeed a more advanced search when you navigate on the website, to instead of enabling only the search for main questions such as the sample type or a given method, that people can also focus on sub-steps of a protocol to highlight the difference in sub-steps between manuscript using the same methodologies. For example, different simplification steps among all protocols that use DUC, etc., etc. So a more advanced search tool to screen and extract data from the database. And the last part that was discussed was the text mining algorithm. So we do have a text mining algorithm that have some ability to solve the survey, at least partially. Its limitation is mostly the interpretation of the text, because it retrieves keywords and look in the neighborhood of the keywords to find more parameters related to the keywords and the questions, but it cannot relate protocols to a particular sample, and it cannot interpret neither figures or the text. So it has advantages. It's a promising tool, but it's still limited, and we will need to go towards artificial intelligence, which is beyond our current know-how. So there is several people indeed that were present in this room that are interested in advancing these tools, but it's, I think, something new to all the participants to date. So a possibility could be to go to an external company, as EVTrack is actually providing all the tools needed to advance this subject, with thousands of studies and corrections available to train an algorithm. And I think that's about it. We could use also artificial intelligence to uniformize, and text mining to uniformize the database. Voilà.
Thank you, Conte and Sander, for the wrap-up of Breakout Room 2. Then we move to Breakout Room 3, where we discuss the outreach and future developments. I'm happy to inform you, Conte and Sander, that there was a participant with an AI background who particularly attended it because we made it in the announcement that we may need some AI expertise. So there was a confirmation that this is something we should definitely be able to do, although it would still need some research to fine-tune. So, but it sounded promising. So for Breakout Room 3, well, the aim is first of all outreach, so that there is more use of EVTrack. This of course relates to the first two breakout rooms where we need further development of the EVTrack platform. So it was mentioned that it should, although we made a lot of progress, as was noticed in the other breakout rooms, that it can still be more improved to be more friendly in use and have a more fancy view. Maybe also a highlight on what really the benefits are at the cost of some time investment that you have to make to complete the survey. Of course, it's important to recruit ESR. So I think already from the two different breakout rooms, it's clear that many early career researchers are also very interested to be involved in all of these different working groups. Then we had a discussion on who to contact for further outreach. So definitely journals and publishers would be very helpful. Workshops, so there was made a link to different national societies, also provide like a uniform slide that presenters at different societies can use to inform the other societies about the EVTrack initiative. The uniform slide, other societies, and then related to the EV-related databases, there was also the comment that it would be very nice if you have all these data available in the EVTrack knowledge base, that you should also be able to extract the results from the manuscript. So there were some thoughts on how to also capture like RNA data, protein data, so the true results of the experiments that are being reported in the survey, to also capture these, because then it would allow you to indeed make immediate method-to-method comparisons at the protein level, RNA level. So in the longer term, it can be generated. We discussed on that because for now we mainly focus on reporting those parameters and not really on the results. We developed the add-on to integrate in the molecular cargo-based databases so that they can link the studies that are reporting on the molecular cargo to the EV-Track knowledge base. So I think this is something that can be considered and should be further discussed also with researchers that have developed these molecular cargo-focused databases. And then, yeah, one of the most important things from my point of view, and I think I also learned this from the discussion, is that it should be still sustainable and living. So for sustainability, there was a definite belief in the implementation of artificial intelligence, to keep up with the rapid number of publications on EVs that are appearing. Without artificial intelligence, we will probably never be able to keep up. So there is definitely a viewpoint for that. And there was also a topic related to pre-analytics. That this is also a very important aspect. So there was a link that also biobanks should be, for example, informed about EV-Track, and also try to give their input on what are the requirements if you want to biobank samples and so on. So there were a lot of ideas, a lot of discussions, and also the role of national societies that can be an important role between the ISEV at the international level to further distribute, organize workshops and introduce the use of EV-Track. So the wrap-up of the 3 breakout rooms. So in the end, this will result in the EV-Track task force, where we will have 3 different working groups that actually compose the different breakout rooms of today. So one on data submission curation, one on really website and survey development, and then a 3rd one on outreach and future developments. What was I going to say here? So the overall view is that we want to maintain EV-Track as a living knowledge base, where we really aim that the EV research community is using the tool for transparent reporting to centralize knowledge. And as is nicely indicated in the figure, I think it all stands with the community effort. And we really hope that we can set up a very nice composition of the task force for EV-Track to steer this community participation. So why should you participate in the EV-Track task force? First of all, because as the heterogeneity in the field, we need multi-level heterogeneity. So we need early career researchers. We need also more domain-specific experts. Why the early career researchers? Because they are frequent users of the knowledge base. Why the domain-specific experts? Because they can really inform on which parameters we should include in the survey to make sure that different aspects are captured. Of course, this all requires also a balance between enough parameters to assess transparency, but not an overload of parameters to avoid that it becomes disencouraging to use the survey. And I think overall, the most important aspect to participate in the task force is that with establishing the task force, we will be able to ensure the future of the EV-Track knowledge base, because the current EV-Track admin team is too limited in hands to really follow the pace of evolution of the EV research field. So we aim with the task force to ensure the future development and outreach and increased use of EV-Track. Your contribution to the EV-Track task force, besides, of course, having a lot of networking opportunities, I want to highlight that it's also actually the task force that really aims to recruit early career researchers that are working in close contact with more advanced career researchers and principal investigators. And also it's the task force that really brings together the expertise from all the different task forces with the aim to translate all the work done by the task forces in an output in the survey of the EV-Track knowledge base. So you can definitely contribute to help to organize workshops, to introduce people to the use of EV-Track, to an update of an EV-Track version. I don't know how many versions we will create. We will start with the second version, but let's hope many versions can follow. And of course, in any manuscripts that are delivered as an output of an EV-Track course, you will also be involved as co-authors. I mentioned this in the beginning, so from the participants, we could already see that we had a very nice contributions of the different chapters, different research careers. Also, the main participants mainly derived from academia, although we also had some participants from other sorts of institutes. I think it's also very relevant to have people from different backgrounds involved because they can also come up with different needs for the platform. So how will we start the recruitment? First of all, at the ISEV meeting, as Juan highlighted in the beginning, there will be a rigor and standardization session where also EV-Track Task Force will again be introduced to the ISEV Society. And then we will launch a survey to start to recruit members for the EV-Track Task Force, which will run between April and June. In this survey, we will, of course, also request for your particular working group interest. So in which working group would you particularly want to contribute? And also if you have work group related expertise to also highlight this. And then we foresee to finalize the setup of the task force probably around summertime. And an important aspect to mention, and I think it Jan already brought it up, that of course there is a need of training. So we will start off with the kickoff meeting in around September. And this will of course also involve some training, especially I think for the first two breakout rooms or working groups where we have data submission and curation. Of course, if you want to participate in this working group, you will need to have some training to demonstrate that you are able to upload the data, but also curate the data related to the website and survey development. You have to learn how to manage a survey, how to manage the website, because of course, we don't want the EV-Track knowledge base to crash during the setup of the task force. And so there will be some training, and this will require some dedication because we want to finish this more or less in a dedicated time frame so that we have really our trained set of task force members that can really kick off and start up with the future developments. And with that, we come to the end of the first meeting of the EV-Track Task Force. So I want to thank you all for participating to today's meeting, for your excellent discussions. I don't know if there were any questions that are still left in the chat box. But thank you all, and I don't know if I have to give the last word to the Rigor and Standardization Subcommittee, Rink, Juan, or Metka. You want to add something to this? Quickly check.
Maybe I can just add that this was a very interesting. I was in the second. This was website and data curation, this subgroup, and it was great. I think that there were so many ideas and there's so much potential here. And congratulations on everything that you've already done for EV-Track, but I think that this will be a great new future in the ISEV family and ISEV task force, EV-Track task force. I think it's going to be great and extremely helpful to the ISEV members. So yeah, really looking forward to this.
Perfect. Thank you, Metka, to sum up. And I want to thank everyone, also the EV-Track administrators that were chairing the breakout rooms and helpful in preparing the meeting and maintaining the knowledge base for the past couple of years. thank all the participants for their contributions to the discussion and attending and their interest in EV-Track. And then, of course, we look forward to recruiting members and kick off the task force. Thank you. Bye.
Best.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Well done. Bye.
Thank you.
A great meeting.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.